so much to get into. Let's get right to it. Benjamin Šeško then, Dharmesh. How close are United to getting him in?
It's getting closer. It's developing. Talks between Manchester United and RB Leipzig are advancing over the signing of Benjamin Šeško. No full agreement that should be specified at this point, but discussions, we're told, are heading in a positive direction. Personal terms not expected to be an issue for the player. Just a reminder of what United's offer is. It's an initial £65 million plus a further £8.9 million in performance-related add-ons. So it just comes short of £74 million. That's actually less than what Newcastle United's bid was. However, Manchester United is the preferred choice of Benjamin Sesko. Now, I think United have been pretty clever in the way they've approached this one, because they've seen Newcastle United going with one bid, which wasn't good enough for RB Leipzig. Then they've gone again, and they've gone again big. It was like a €90 million all-in bid that they put into RB Leipzig. United just sat back because what they wanted to do was to get an assurance from the player himself that he wanted to come to Manchester United before they made that bid. And that is effectively what has happened, because once we knew Manchester United had put that bid in of nearly £74 million all in, that was the signal that, right, something's gone on behind the scenes, that Benjamin Sesko has made it clear to Manchester United that he wants to go to that club. Because it would be no point Manchester United bidding against Newcastle United if they know the player is going to come. As far as Sesko himself is concerned, him and RB Leipzig have got a fantastic relationship. He doesn't want to rock the boat. He hasn't agitated for a move at all during this whole saga. But he has made it clear to them, Manchester United is my preferred destination. And then he's left it to them. If they can agree that deal with Manchester United, then he can go there. If they can't, then he will sit back and say, well, I'll stay at RB Leipzig, or see if Newcastle United is the destination for me after all.
It's a really why would he choose Manchester United over Newcastle United when Newcastle United have got Champions League football?
It doesn't make any sense on paper, does it? But I think what this emphasises is that Manchester United still have a huge pulling power when it comes to transfers. We've seen that already with Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, both of whom Newcastle wanted to sign, and they missed out on Manchester United, even though they were prepared to match the deal financially. These players seem to be choosing the Theatre of Dreams at Old Trafford as a chosen destination. Look, I think you have to realise that Manchester United are a legacy club. There are a lot of people in football who don't like to admit it, but they're huge. They have an enormous worldwide following, probably second only to Real Madrid in terms of following worldwide. They have a massive commercial base. They can still afford these deals. They're a huge worldwide brand. And after what Sir Alex Ferguson achieved with Manchester United, everybody knows what they're capable of. They're almost a sleeping giant. And so I think a lot of these players that are at the level we're talking about with Benjamin Sesko here like the idea of trying to go there. From the people I'm speaking to in the transfer market on a daily basis, Ruben Amorim has a huge pull and a huge draw for these players as well. They like the way that he's very straight talking and honest. They like the way that he's improving Manchester United and dragging them up by their shoestrings, if you like, from a very low base. And they like the fact that they think that he makes players better on the coaching field and brings the best out of them. So I think you add all that together, and that's some way to go into to explain why Sesko and others are choosing Manchester United over Newcastle. On paper, it doesn't make any sense, because I'm a huge fan of Eddie Howe. I think he's a brilliant tactician. He definitely gets the best out of his players. He's a brilliant man manager. They've got Champions League football. They finished 5th compared with Manchester United's 15th. In the Premier League last season.
Got sensational midfield, which are going to set you up for goals.
And we know what the fan base is like at Newcastle United as well. They are absolutely emphatic behind their club. It's a one-town club, isn't it? A one-city club. And if you play well for Newcastle United, look at Alan Shearer, an absolute legend of those parts. Will never have to buy a drink in the town ever again. You know, Benjamin Sesko probably isn't thinking like that, but to turn Newcastle down and put all your eggs in one basket for Man United is surprising, but understandable.
It's an ego thing as well. If you're a player and you've looked at Manchester United since Sir Alex Ferguson left, it's been 12 years where, yes, they've won a few trophies, but they haven't really challenged again for the Premier League title, which is what Manchester United feel they should be doing. They've gone through all of these managers. They've spent hundreds of millions of pounds on players. Now they've come to a point where they finished 15th in the Premier League, their lowest ever finish. if you're a player and people say, well, why are you going to go to Manchester United? Some of them might think, well, I want to be that guy who is going to get them back to where they feel they belong. So it's almost a challenge to players like Bryan Mbeumo, who said, I want to go to Manchester United. Matheus Cunha, who had other offers as well, to say, I want to go to Manchester United. Benjamin Sesko, we've been talking about him for 4 or 5 transfer windows, when a number of European football's top clubs have been interested in signing Benjamin Sesko. And clearly it's not a done deal yet, but from what we can gather, he wants to go to Manchester United. So there is clearly what Rob mentioned there, that pull, but there also must be a little bit of ego and arrogance from the players themselves to say, I'm going to be that guy who gets United back up there.
One other brief thing, Mike, is I think you have to realise that the Sesko situation is a little bit unique. I mean, Darmish has pointed out that the relationship he has with RB Leipzig, even though he's only been there a relatively short period of time, he didn't come through their academy or anything. It's very unusual that a club would say to the player that they're selling, you choose where you want to go, because Newcastle have bid more than Manchester United here, don't forget. Newcastle could up their bid. They could blow Manchester United out of the water with their bid if they wanted to. If they're going to get 110, 120 million pounds for Alexander Isak potentially, which they know they can get, then they could use all of that to buy Benjamin Sesko if they want. But I think at some point, Newcastle, as a very well-run club, sit back and go, hang on a minute. If we spend if we sell Isak for 120 million pounds and then we spend 100 million pounds on Benjamin Sesko, are we getting a good deal here? Is Alexander Isak worth Benjamin Sesko plus 20 million pounds? No, he's not in the open market. So they're not prepared to go that high. They know what a good value is, which is probably why they've missed out on some deals already this season. We've talked a lot in this window about the players they've gone for and haven't got. But I think actually, whilst Newcastle fans are hurting, they will be reassured in knowing that their club is not overpaying for players. They're not trying to just bring players in for the sake of it. They're looking at market value, they're looking at PSR, and they're saying, this is our plan going forward. The numbers don't work.
But also the relationship that we're mentioning between the two clubs, RB Leipzig will have said to Benjamin Sesko, there will be certain clubs that if they reach a certain limit on our valuation, you will be allowed to go. Now, Manchester United could be classed as one of those clubs, but also if you're looking at the difference in the offers between Newcastle and Manchester United, it's not that big at the moment.
But it's 5 million. It's 5 million euros. Why wouldn't RB Leipzig say, no, we get 5 million euros? No. We're still losing the player.
But what I'm saying is if the player has made it clear that he wants to go to Manchester United and there's only a 5 million euro difference, it is not going to be in RB Leipzig's interest to say, no, you're not going because Newcastle United are paying 5 million more when you're going to get 80 odd million euros anyway. So that's the reason that relationship has been built up between player and the club to the point where he hasn't agitated at all for this. He's letting RB Leipzig and Manchester United do their thing. They've said to him, we're happy if they can agree this deal at the valuation that we want, because as much as we don't want to lose you, we want you to go to where you want to go as well, provided we get our valuation.
He came from Salzburg before, didn't he? So he's in the Red Bull group, so yeah. I understand. All right, so Dharma, so if United do get this done, is that then finished in this transfer window?
Not necessarily. Look, one thing I should say here, we should preface this by saying the focus right now is in Benjamin Sesko. And it is also on player sales. And we've been talking about those player sales throughout this window, those 5 players who Manchester United want out and to try and get some money for. Marcus Rashford has gone, Jadon Sancho, Garnacho, Anthony, Tyrell Malacia.
Can I add Højlund to that list yet?
Potentially, yes, because we've heard that Rasmus Højlund, if offers were to come in for him and they were of a good valuation, Manchester United not necessarily would sell him, but they'd consider them. That is if Šeško was to come in, because Højlund himself is going to have to think about it if Šeško comes in, because clearly his game time is going to be limited. However, they are looking at strengthening other areas of the pitch on Manchester United, not just in the forward areas, because it looks like if Šeško does come, the entire front 3 is going to be different from last season. Šeško, Mbeumo and Cunha. But midfield is also a position that they are looking at. Brighton's Carlos Baleba is one of a number of players that Manchester United have just explored the conditions of a deal for. No official contact between clubs at all at the moment. It's thought it would not be an easy deal to do, particularly if they get the Šeško deal over the line, because of the financial outlay that it would require to not only get Šeško, but Belieber as well, because he wouldn't be cheap.
Yeah, OK. So Manchester United look like they're doing some business, which means a really tough window for Newcastle. And it's now been confirmed Alexander Isak is training away from the first team squad. So how does this one play out? Well, our reporter Keith Downey has the latest.
Tonight's meeting between Eddie Howe and Alexander Isak, for the first time since both men returned from their pre-season training camps, will be crucial to that. Without doubt, Eddie Howe is disappointed with the conduct of his star striker, travelling to Spain on his own individual training camp instead of being with the rest of the squad on their tour of Asia. And the fact that Eddie Howe found that out through the media, I think, is the most galling thing of all. Howe's response was today to tell Isak to turn up to report at 4 o'clock for a meeting and for his own individual training and recuperation, while the rest of the squad throughout the day had their families in for a team bonding session. So it was interesting to see Isak arrive today at 4 o'clock just as the rest of the players were leaving. Isak, the only player uninvited. But where does it leave the Isak situation? Well, we've been telling you all along that Newcastle will not allow him to leave without a replacement. Benjamin Sesko was supposed to be that man. It looks as though he's headed for Manchester United. So I can foresee a situation where Alexander Isak starts the season in the black and white of Newcastle unless they have another potential striker signing up their sleeve.
Keith Downey there. Right, Rob, why don't they just cash in now and get someone else?
What, cash in on Isak?
Yeah.
Because they don't want him to go.
But he's really unhappy.
He is at the moment.
He's not even allowed to go to the barbecue.
Yeah, I quite fancy going to Newcastle's family barbecue. Sounds like it was probably quite a good day. Listen, I totally get what you're saying, but it's not that simple, is it? You have to look at the fact that Alexander Isak has ingrained himself into that Newcastle squad. He is fundamental to it now. He's their most important player. Newcastle don't want to throw that away and try and start again and try and integrate a new striker. But I think you have to ask, with all the number of strikers that have moved this summer, how many are left for Newcastle to go for? Certainly nobody of Alexander Isak's quality. And so from their perspective, as hard as it may be to reintegrate him, if he's really disappointed and has his heart set on moving to Liverpool, if he's causing problems within the squad, which we don't know that he is, we just know that he's training separately from that, and clearly Eddie Howe has been upset with the way he's conducted himself. I mean, this is Alexander Isak arriving at training today again, training on his own at 4 o'clock. He arrived as the rest of the players were leaving.
That's got to hurt, hasn't it?
It's got to hurt, and it's going to be difficult to reintegrate it. But, you know, which strikers are potentially available? Nicholas Jackson is available at Chelsea, we expect.
For shed loads of money.
£80 million doesn't sound good value to me. I can't believe that Chelsea would expect that as a fee for Nicholas Jackson going forward. Now they've got João Pedro in, now they've got Liam Delap in. I think they would be a bit more realistic than that, if I'm honest with you. But look, that's what we're being told that they want for him. And I can't see Newcastle paying £80 million for Nicholas Jackson, getting 120 for Alexander Isak and saying, hey, we've got a good deal there. So it's not easy for Newcastle. Look at the players they've missed out on this season. In the attacking departments, they like Liam Delap. He went to Chelsea for £30 million, an absolute snip. João Pedro, they were negotiating seriously for him with Brighton. He went to Chelsea as well.
And what a start he's made there. Absolutely.
Hugo Ekitike went to Liverpool. He was very much on Newcastle's radar. Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo both went to Manchester United. Newcastle wanted them as well. And now it looks like they're going to miss out on Šeško. I think that just shows how difficult a job it is. If you're Newcastle with Champions League football and Eddie Howe at the helm, having finished fifth on the up, and you can't attract these players because they want to go elsewhere, then I've got huge sympathy for Newcastle because it's a difficult market for them.
Really is. If you're on the Liverpool side of things, you probably think, yeah, it's great, we get Isak, it's fantastic. Well, Jamie Carragher joined the debate, and he's questioned how signing Isak alongside Hugo Ekitike would actually work. Now, this is what he said. When you have a top striker like Isak, Haaland, Kane, it's very difficult to have quality backup, as they always play. 80 million is too much to pay for backup. Where does Ekitike get his minutes in his position? Not fudging it by putting him on the left. hard to play together when you've spent 115 million on Wirtz. And yes, we do need to buy more attackers, he said. He's right, isn't he?
He is right, but look, I'd never disagree with Jamie Carragher, who knows Liverpool.
But you're just about to.
Well, a little bit, because he calls it a fudge if he plays him out on the left. I'm not sure it is, if I'm honest with you, because Ekitike has played there on 9 occasions in the last couple of seasons. He's played quite a lot of minutes there. It suits him attacking off the left. Even when he plays as a striker, he tends to drift back wide to the left anyway. He's quite a mobile striker. He doesn't just sit up top as a target man. And so if it could well be that Arne Slot's thinking about that, using him on the left-hand side. And imagine that, with him on the left, Alexander Isak down the middle, and Mo Salah on the right. With Wirtz, by the way, probably as a number 10 or an attack, with Wirtz behind them. There is no better attacking unit than that in the Premier League.
Is there an argument, though, that, and Darmesh come in on this as well, that actually Arne Slot's side won the Premier League at a canter last season. Now he's got all his toys, he's getting all these players in, and they might actually be too many, like Jamie's hinted at.
I don't think you can have too many quality players. And there's going to be so many competitions that these big clubs are going to be involved in. They're going to have to rotate the squad anyway. And it will be good for Arne Slot to be able to play in different ways as well if he wants to, with these different players. Sometimes, I mean, we're talking like if Isak comes, but we should just row back on that a little bit because he's still a Newcastle United player. So, but the fact that they've got a player like Ekitike, the fact that they've got attacking talent like Salah and Wirtz, and they're in the market maybe to bring in someone like Isak. I think it's just ominous for the rest of the league. Jamie Carragher says, you know, they don't need him, but if they want him and they can do the deal, why not? I think look at the competition for places they'll have.
It's a really interesting debate at the moment because Arsenal have had a fantastic window so far, brought in 5 quality players, and yet I would argue they've fallen further behind Liverpool in the terms of their squad quality. I didn't expect Liverpool to spend the money they have and bring in the quality of players they've had as the reigning champions of the Premier League. I didn't feel necessarily that they needed to. But if you look at what they've done in attacking areas, Diaz out, Nunez close to going by the sounds of things. They've brought in Ekitike, Wirtz and maybe Alexander Isak as well. Whew. That's good business, and I think it takes them further.
We should also very, very quickly just calm for a second. Season hasn't started. We don't know what's going to happen.
About what? What are you talking about?
We don't know what's going to happen. Who's to say that Arsenal are going to be weaker than Liverpool until we see them next season? That's when we start judging, because you can win a window but lose a season. And
we've talked a lot about that in terms of the strikers that have moved into the Premier League this summer. Who's got the best deal? Who's got the best player? Is Gyökeres a better option than Šeško? You know, is Ekitike a better option than Isak? You know, all of these debates are what every single football fan in this country is talking about right now. And you're right, we'll only find out when they're on the pitch. Is potential better than experience? You know?
I definitely want to get into Arsenal's window a bit later. But before that, will Liverpool be done whether or not they get Isak, Darmesh?
Incomings?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they still might be looking out for a central defender. Maybe another midfielder. So, look, they've spent a lot of money, but they also sell really well as well. We're talking about Darwin Núñez leaving. We're talking about Harvey Elliott potentially going as well. RB Leipzig are in talks. But look at these deals that they've done in this transfer window when it comes to sales. We keep talking about how much money Liverpool are spending, but they are a fantastically run club. They even got £10 million for Trent Alexander-Arnold, which, well, let's be honest, a year ago, you would have said that was bad business. But when you found out he's going to be a free agent and you end up getting £10 million for a month to go to Real Madrid, that's not bad. Kevin Kelleher, people could argue that that's quite a good deal for Brentford because he could have gone for more than £18 million all in. But then, you know, the likes of Jarrell Quansah, who wasn't going to disturb the first 2 choice centre-backs, 35 million by Leverkusen. Luis Diaz is the one that stands out for me. Quality player, admittedly, but they've made money on him and he was 28 years old going on 29. And Tyler Morton, £15 million. Richard Hughes, since he's become sporting director at Liverpool, if, and it's a big if, they do sell Darwin Núñez to Al Hilal, if, and it's a big if, Harvey Elliott does get sold to RB Leipzig, then you're looking at sales totaling close to £300 million since he came in.
Yeah, they've done well.
And just to update you on Núñez, by the way, because Darmish has mentioned him there. Yes, I think you're right. Harvey Elliott is still in the very early stages, might not happen. It looks like Núñez's move to Al Hilal is happening now. Fee agreed. We expect him to have a medical in the next few days. £46.2 million fee agreed, which could rise to £56 million. So, again, another really good deal for Liverpool if they can get that one over the line.
Indeed. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, quick bit of team news from Aston Villa. John McGinn on the bench for their game against Roma tonight. What does that mean? And Sunderland have signed Mark Guiu from Chelsea. And coming next, we're going to talk Jack Grealish and, I'm dying to get into this, Arsenal's window. Is it as good as Rob just said? We'll discuss it next. Right, we were going to start with Jack Grealish, but Darmish has got news on another winger. Darmish.
Yeah, this is a story that has just been broken by David Ornstein from The Athletic, and it is to do with Omari Hutchinson. Now, he has been in the news during this transfer window because you'll remember Brentford went in for him earlier on in this transfer window after selling Bryan Mbeumo, and there's talk of what Johan Wissa's future is looking like. Well, Nottingham Forest now are in for Omari Hutchinson as well, but Ipswich Town have rejected a bid from Nottingham Forest worth £35 million. Now, I'm told that it will take a much higher fee than £35 million because the £35 million figure is what the relegation clause fee would have been. So when Omari Hutchinson signed his contract with Ipswich Town, there was a relegation clause in there that would allow clubs to talk to him if they met a £35 million relegation clause. However, that relegation clause is now null and void. So Ipswich Town can effectively charge what they want. And it seems they would want much more than the £35 million that Nottingham Forest have just had rejected. Brentford are keeping an eye on their situation as well, but it is one definitely to keep an eye on for the rest of this transfer window because he is definitely a man in demand, is Omari Hutchinson.
As we expect, will be Jack Grealish, Rob. Any developments on him?
Yeah, big developments today. Everton have made an approach to Manchester City over a possible deal for Grealish. We've had different perspectives on how advanced these talks are, how serious this stage. And the impression I get is that it's not very advanced, it's not very serious talks at the moment. It's more of an inquiry from Everton right now. But it's clear that David Moyes is a big admirer of him, as an awful lot of clubs in the Premier League will be, of course. And I think it could be very interesting to see where Grealish ends up at the end of this transfer window. It could be one that goes very late into the window. Why? Well, the people I've been speaking to have explained to me that at the moment, Manchester City are demanding a pretty high loan fee for him, and any club that comes in, Manchester City want them to play the bulk of his £300,000 a week wages. If Jack Grealish is still a Manchester City player in 3-4 weeks' time, when we're getting closer to the end of the transfer window, 2 or 3 weeks' time, closer to the end of the transfer window, then Manchester may be prepared to temper their demands, shall we say, and it become more affordable for more clubs. So I think wait to see what happens here. But I think anybody to do a substantive deal for Jack Grealish right now is difficult. £100 million he cost Manchester City a few years ago. I can't see anybody paying that. The wages are going to be an issue. But clearly Everton have started the ball rolling here by making an inquiry, by telling Manchester City they are interested in talking to them about a possible season-long loan deal for him.
That's interesting, started the ball rolling. Do you see the floodgates opening and other clubs piling in now?
I do, because he's surplus to requirements at Manchester City. We saw him training in those pictures just there with the rest of the squad yesterday. He's still very popular with the squad, gets on really well with Pep Guardiola. But Guardiola has made it clear that he doesn't necessarily see Jack Grealish's future this season at Manchester City. He only gave him one Premier League start in the entirety of last season. So his days at Manchester City are numbered. He knows that. Pep Guardiola knows that. The City fans know that. So does every other club in this land know that. And so I think there could be a real bun fight of clubs trying to get to Jack Grealish.
I'm going to throw a name at you. Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, look, we talked about this, didn't we, off camera, and I think he's a great fit for Tottenham, especially with James Maddison having just picked up a nasty knee injury. We don't know the extent of that yet, but it looks like he might be out for a while. We know Tottenham are in the market for a number 10. They tried and failed to get Morgan Gibbs-White from Nottingham Forest. We know that Jack Grealish likes to play number 10. He prefers playing there than wide on the left. And so it would seem to be a very, very good fit. And from Jack Grealish's perspective, if he's playing regularly for Spurs with Champions League football, his chances of making it into Thomas Tuchel's World Cup squad next summer are much, much greater. But £300,000 a week, Daniel Levy. Those two things don't add up. So something's got to give.
Yeah. So, Dharmesh, so Everton set the ball rolling with Jack Grealish, but they have done some business today. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, David Moyes has been pretty frustrated, hasn't he, during this transfer window? But, I mean, the Grealish news may, intrigue Everton fans, but this will really please them because there's a done deal today, and that is Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Joined Everton from Chelsea for an initial £25 million, which could rise to £29 million. He only joined Chelsea last summer, didn't he? For £30 million from Leicester City. He was a regular in their successful Europa Conference League campaign, but only 2 Premier League starts. And I'm sure he's going to want many more starts than that. And I'm sure he'll get that at Everton. He signed a 5-year contract with Everton. So Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, now an Everton player.
Rob, when Enzo Maresca took him with him to Chelsea, did you not think he's going to play loads?
Yeah, I did.
He's going to be key.
And that's what I was... Because I know people around Maresca and I know people around Dewsbury-Hall very well. And Maresca saw him as his general on the pitch almost. He knew he was going to try and instigate a very different way of playing for Chelsea. A very patient build-up with the ball, playing out from the back. Not necessarily the high press they've been doing in the past. And yet... he didn't give Dewsbury-Hall the opportunity to do that. He didn't trust him in the Premier League to do that. And that surprised me, I have to be honest. But look, let's be honest, Everton are getting a very, very good player. A player who's going to be very hungry to impress, having had a season of very little football. He's at a good age. He will be a big influence on that Everton side, I think. He will dictate the play an awful lot. David Moyes will like him. The fans will love him. I think it's a move that suits everybody. Yeah, indeed. Now, Real Madrid forward Rodrigo has been linked with a move away from the Bernabeu. South American football expert Tim Vickery believes the Brazil international could leave Madrid if Xabi Alonso doesn't play him in his preferred position.
Let's watch this space over the next couple of weeks because this could be interesting. And Rodrigo has the Real Madrid dilemma, doesn't he? That it's hard for players to be top dog there. And he's so talented. He's almost absurdly talented. But someone has to do the hard yards. And, Jude Bellingham said last year that he considered Rodrigo the most talented of all of them and the one who has to sacrifice himself most for the side. Now, where does Xabi Alonso see? He can play anywhere across the front line. Didn't use him very much in the Club World Cup. And when he did, wide right. Now, we know that Rodrigo doesn't really want to play wide right. He would far prefer a free role. Now, what we understand is that he is very keen on staying at Real Madrid and proving to Xabi Alonso that he can be a key part of that side. Over the next 2 weeks, if that doesn't happen, then he may start looking around. And what an asset he would be. It's almost like one of those mafia films when you need to break away and start your own family because he is so good.
Yeah, he is good. And Arsenal were linked with him earlier in the window, Dharmesh. Could they go back in?
Look, let's be straight here, first of all, that the focus at Arsenal, after what's been a pretty impressive transfer window, I think we'll be talking about that in a moment anyway, is going to be on sales. Fulham have been in talks with Arsenal over Reiss Nelson. Stuttgart are still pursuing Fabio Vieira. It's understood suitable offers would be considered for the likes of Alexander Zinchenko, Albert Sambi Lokonga as well. Could they go back into the market? I think Arsenal are a club who, when they see a market opportunity, want to be in a position to be able to act if it is a big market opportunity. And I don't think it would get much bigger an opportunity than if Rodrigo suddenly became available in the transfer window. It would be one that would be later on in that window. But it is true that they have kept an eye on Rodrigo throughout this transfer window and just keeping an eye on his situation because, as Tim Vickery mentioned there, it does look a little bit precarious with regard to him and Real Madrid. If he doesn't get his way and play in the position he wants, is he going to agitate to move? And who can then act quickly? Arsenal would want to be in a position if they do that. However, it should be remembered, and I mentioned it before, about the signings that they've made in those forward areas. Noni Madueke is there. He can play across the front three. And Ethan Nwaneri is very, very soon expected to sign a new long-term contract. So it's not a case of they desperately need a player in that position. Maybe they want one, though.
Indeed. All right. Dharmesh just mentioned Noni Madueke. He's just come on for Arsenal. They are playing Madueke via Emirates, currently losing 3-2. Nicola Pepe, former Arsenal player, scored against them. But Christian Norgard and a Martin Ødegaard penalty have got Arsenal in this. 3-2 at the moment. Right. This is what I've been waiting for all the time. You two keep telling me, and you've told me all day, Arsenal have had a great window. I put it to you that the players they've brought in aren't necessarily an upgrade on what they had before. Rob Dorset, discuss.
I think they are. I think they are an upgrade. I think Arsenal have had a fantastic window. But I think despite that, Liverpool, especially if they do Isak, will have had an extraordinary stratospheric window. And so the irony here is that I think Arsenal have had a brilliant window, and yet they may have lost ground in terms of squad strength on their nearest rivals from last season, Liverpool, who went on to win the title. If you look at Arsenal's strategy, I think it's pretty clear what they've been trying to do here. A goalkeeper, Kepa Arrizabalaga from Chelsea. A defender, Christian Mosquera from Valencia. Two defensive midfield players, because it's pretty clear that Arteta felt they were lacking in that department last season, with Christian Norgard from Brentford and Martin Zubamendi from Real Sociedad. A winger, Noni Madueke, we've just been talking about him, from Chelsea. And the jewel in the crown, a striker, which they've needed for 2 years or more, in Victor Gyökeres. Proven track record, 27 years old, straight out the box, ready to go and score goals in the Premier League.
Let's pick a couple of those. Is Zubamendi an upgrade on Partey? Is Norgard an upgrade on Jorginho, for instance? Because it's been put to me, Dharmesh, that actually the floor has risen, but the ceiling hasn't at Arsenal.
Well, if you look at clubs who are near the top of the league, they always strengthen when they are at their strongest. Now, Arsenal, however, rival fans will take the mick a little bit and sing the song second again. The fact of the matter is, when Mikel Arteta joined, they were finishing 8th. Now they are firm challengers for the Premier League title every single season. And if you look at what they've done in this window, Rob went through it there, but Kepa was a £70 million goalkeeper. He's going to be their number 2 goalkeeper. That's strength and depth, number 1 in the goalkeeping department. Mosquera, someone they look like they've seen as someone who is going to be good in the future, 21 years old. A central defender who is going to be great backup to Gabriel and to William Saliba. If you look at those two players, and Thomas Partey and Jorginho, they're in their 30s. They were getting on. They were into the final year of their contract. Arsenal were acting last summer about how they were going to replace these players. They wanted to bring in Zubamendi when Mikel Merino came in. Real Sociedad said, Merino now, you can't take both at this stage, but revisit that next summer, which is what they've done. I've said before, we're not going to see the proof of the pudding until they play. Zubamendi hasn't played in the Premier League before, but the fact is that a lot of big clubs have been after Martin Zubamendi. Liverpool agreed a deal with him. Real Madrid were interested in him. Arsenal have got him. So he can't be that bad. So that could be an improvement in their squad, in their team. Christian Norgard, fantastic Premier League experience, brilliant performer, captain of Brentford, comes to Arsenal, improves the squad, in my opinion. Gyökeres is the number 9 that they've been after for ages. Loads of big European clubs were after him. They see him as the finished article, even though he hasn't played in the Premier League. But Arsenal fans are getting excited about him. And Madueke will add strength to those positions when the likes of Bukayo Saka not necessarily gets injured, but will need a rest, like he probably did need last season. And they probably couldn't bring on the players that they would have wanted that would have improved them as much as they did last season.
An impassioned defence of Arsenal's window. Right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Jermaine Defoe has his say on Alexander Isak, and we've got news from Aston Villa. See you in a moment. Hello again. Right, we're going to talk Aston Villa now. 24 hours ago, Rob, you sat there and you said Evan Gesson to Villa. Any developments?
Yes, he's been left out of the Nice squad for their Champions League qualifier against Benfica tonight. And we reported this morning that a fee has been agreed now between Nice and Aston Villa for Evan Gesson. Pending a medical, this would be a transfer that would cost them £23.5 million, potentially rising to £28 million if all of the clauses are met in that contract. A 5-year contract on the table for the 24-year-old, and that's all but been agreed. So this one could happen pretty quickly now, and I think that's a good get for Villa. He's quite a versatile forward. He can play in a number of different positions. Not as a central striker, typically more out wide or as a number 10. But he scored 12 goals last season, was named the player of the season for Nice as they finished 4th. A lot of clubs have been interested in him this summer, including Wolves. I think it's a good get for Villa. It strengthens them. You
said not a central striker, so no impact on Ollie Watkins?
I wouldn't expect so. I mean, look, Villa have made it very, very clear privately that they do not want to sell Ollie Watkins. We know he's potentially on a list for Manchester United if they were to miss out on Sesko. It doesn't look like they're going to miss out on Sesko now, so that probably won't be an issue. But Ollie Watkins is an attractive proposition to other clubs. Villa don't want to sell. I think they see him and Guesson playing in the same team.
Dharmesh, is Nicholas Jackson an attractive proposition to clubs?
Well, I think Chelsea are going to start expecting a few more offers for him just because of who they've signed. João Pedro's come in and Liam Delap has come in as well. Nicholas Jackson is going to find his game time quite limited next season. Will they consider offers? If they came in, I think Chelsea will take a look. And I think already via intermediaries, they've had interest in Nicholas Jackson from clubs in Italy, from Germany, the Premier League as well. But I think he'd cost quite a bit of money, Nicholas Jackson. I think
they're not going to get that money in Italy and Germany, are they? 80 to 100 million
Not necessarily. I mean, 80 to 100. I don't know whether they get that even in the Premier League. But these clubs now, and they've got every right to do this, are comparing their valuations to other players that have moved in the window. So Chelsea might look at Nicholas Jackson and say, well, Liverpool, you've got Hugo Ekitike and you paid nearly 70 million for him. So if he's nearly 70 million without an ounce of Premier League experience, Nicholas Jackson is worth at least that much. And that's their right to be able to value a player in that way.
Yeah. What do you think, Rob? Jackson?
I think Nicholas Jackson could be a really important player in this window going forward, because we know that Newcastle need a striker. We know that a number of other clubs are looking for a striker. We know that Everton are looking for a striker. Villa are trying to do Guesson, another forward as well. We know that strikers are in demand. They always are in the summer transfer window. And Dharmesh is absolutely right. Nicholas Jackson has Premier League experience. Look, the way he's performed in the last couple of seasons for Chelsea, I think it's a stretch to say that he's worth the same sort of money that the likes of Ekitike have been charging, or Gyökeres. Or even Benjamin Sesko that we're talking about at the moment now. I don't put him in that bracket yet. He's still a young player. He's still got an awful lot of potential. So I think he's going to be an important player in this transfer market. I think Chelsea will have to try and cash in on him at some point later in this window, because I don't see him playing an awful lot for Chelsea next season. So I think it will suit both parties. But if they stick to their valuation of 80 million, I can't see him going anywhere.
Indeed. All right, we've got to go somewhere. We've got to go to a break. When we come back, news from West Ham, Burnley, and a couple of big deals in the Championship. See you in a bit. Right, let's talk about one of the sides that's come up. Burnley. They are closing in on a couple of signings. Dharmesh, you've got the details.
Yeah, it could be a busy week, this one, for Burnley. We spoke about Armando Broja and Chelsea. That one is still in progress, but one that looks really close is Martin Dubravka, the goalkeeper from Newcastle. Burnley have agreed a permanent deal with Newcastle for Dubravka. He's been having a medical with Burnley today. They've been in the market, of course, to bring in a keeper after they sold James Trafford to Manchester City. Dubravka himself had entered the final year of his contract. They're not finishing there either. I mentioned Broja just then. They're looking to bring in another Chelsea player, and that is Leslie Ugochukwu. He's expected to have a medical, the midfielder, at Burnley in the next 24 hours or so, ahead of finalising a permanent move from Chelsea. And he's agreed in principle a 5-year contract with Burnley. So they're going for it, Burnley.
Yeah, OK. And so are all the clubs that have come up. Rob, do West Ham have to do a bit of catching up and get cracking here?
They're trying to. It's been made clear to me that Graham Potter and the recruitment guys at West Ham are working very, very hard. They'd like a creative midfield player in. They liked Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall and made inquiries about him, it was made clear to me, but obviously missed out on him he's gone to Everton. They need a goalkeeper as well, and they're working very hard on a goalkeeper. You and I were talking about the Brazilian John Victor yesterday and suggesting that deal was quite a long way along the line. The information I have this evening is that they haven't given up on the Leicester goalkeeper Mads Hermansen, who's Leicester's first choice goalkeeper. Now, The last I was told from that was that the two clubs were miles apart in terms of evaluation. Leicester City want more than £25 million for Mads Hermansen, and West Ham were looking at 13 potentially to get him. So that seemed a mile off, but the sources that I speak to have said that it's not dead in the water yet. So keep your eyes open for West Ham. They've been reasonably quiet in the transfer window so far, but they are trying to do business, both particularly in midfield and in the goalkeeper department.
Right, it's that time to check in on Chuba Akpom and what's going on with him, Dharmesh.
The saga is nearly at an end.
OK, you said that all week.
Sure?
So.
It looks like he will become an Ipswich Town player.
Okay.
Look, I'll quickly run you through what's happened here. Birmingham agreed a loan with an obligation to buy for £7 million if Birmingham got promoted with Ajax. Olympiacos and Akpom's former club, Middlesbrough, they expressed an interest as well. Then in swooped Ipswich Town. And suddenly, Chuba Akpom's head was made up. He wanted to go to Ipswich. So that should have been the end of it? No, not quite. Because in the last 24 hours, Birmingham came back into the picture and they wanted to do a permanent deal with Ajax worth £6 million. Ajax were trying to push Akpom to Birmingham because they knew they were going to get this guaranteed money regardless of whether Birmingham were promoted or not. However, Akpom said, no, my head is not for turning. I'm really pleased with the chats I've had with Kieran McKenna. The paperwork now is at the final stages, and it looks like that is a case of when and not if Akpom becomes an Ipswich Town player. And the same can be said for Jens Kajust, who from Napoli was on loan at Ipswich last season.
Yeah.
That again is at the final stages. So hopefully Ipswich Town will be looking at bringing in both Akpom and Kajust in the coming week or so. And guess what? The first fixture of the Championship season on Friday night, Birmingham against Ipswich.
Of course it is.
Live on Sky Sports.
Indeed. Rob, you've got news coming out of Coventry.
Yeah, we broke this exclusively this morning. Coventry are considering breaking their club record to bring Charlie Hughes in, the centre-back from Hull. He's only 21 years old, was their young player of the season last season. Huge future ahead of him. I've been told that Coventry saw a bid of £6 million guaranteed with a £1 million add-on clause rejected in the last couple of days, and they're considering going to £7 million plus one, which would break their transfer record. Haji Wright was their previous record 2 summers ago, £7.7 million. Sheffield United like this defender as well. They're looking for a replacement, of course, for Ahmed Hodzic, who they sold yesterday. They like Atalanta's Ben Godfrey as well. So there could be a bit of a tug of war for Charlie Hughes at Hull now. They don't want to let him go, by the way. They expect more than £10 million for him. So all the clubs that are interested are a little bit way off that at the moment. But big news potentially for Coventry fans that they like this player so much, Frank Lampard, prepared to potentially break their club record to bring him.
Absolutely love the Championship. Gentlemen, I've enjoyed the transfer show as well. Thank you very much. Transfer show back again tomorrow, of course. We'll keep you right up to date with everything that's happening. Now, Arsenal have been playing this evening. They lost, but there's a penalty shootout after the break. You'll hear from the manager, Mikel Arteta. Enjoy.
Welcome back to Sports Lab, where we break down the game's biggest moves, smartest strategies, and what's really happening behind the scenes in football's transfer market. Manchester United move for Carlos Balaba. Will Brighton sell? Manchester United have made their first move for Carlos Balaba, but will Brighton actually sell the Cameroon international midfielder this window? The chances are very remote. Brighton make no secret of their model. Buy talented young players based on Tony Bloom's data-driven analytics system, and sell them only when the time is right, for both the club and the player. Crucially, sales typically only happen when there's a ready-made replacement lined up to step into the first team. While money always talks in football, the timing doesn't align from Brighton's perspective. Balaba was signed for £25 million in August 2023. Since then, his value has likely skyrocketed, with many inside the club rating his potential higher than that of Moses Caicedo, who fetched over £100 million when he left. There is hope in 19-year-old Malik Yalkouye, who is seen as a similar type of midfielder. But he's still early in his development, with just one loan spell behind him. While Yalkouye could eventually replace Balaba, it seems too soon for that transition. That's it for this transfer insight on Sports Lab. Stay tuned as we continue to track United's midfield hunt and Brighton's long-term strategy in the window.